Hello there. Netflix just dropped a fucking stinker called The Last Days of American Crime, and occasionally I'll watch a movie that's so bad I don't want to put it on the moist meter, and this is one of those cases. Main reason I don't want to moist meter this one is because I feel like just giving it a low score like 10% or something might make someone think, maybe it's so bad it's good. It's not. It sucks. It blows ass. If this movie had a face, I would slap it. It's 2.5 hours of agony, just pure time wasting. The first sin you need to be aware of with this movie is that it's directed by the same guy who made Taken 3. You know, the infamous jumping the fence scene that has 15 cuts in 6 seconds? Yeah, imagine that stretched out across 2.5 hours. Now, admittedly, he used significantly less cuts in this movie than his previous work, so he seems to be gradually improving in that department over the course of like 5 or 6 years, so, you know, it's great. He's on the come up now. In fact, I'd argue in each action scene in this movie, there's probably only about 10 cuts per 6 seconds, so he's starting to get the average down. But unfortunately, while he took 1 step forward with his action, he took 20 steps backwards in every other department. It kind of just fucking sucks on all fronts, especially when it comes to narrative and writing and characters and pretty much just general movie making. But I want to start with something I liked here, because there is something I liked here, and it's the premise. It's based on a graphic novel, and the premise of the movie is America has developed this new technology that is a signal that gets pumped across the entire country that inhibits anyone's ability to perform an unlawful action no matter what. It's just some fucking goofy radio wave that gets pumped out at the push of a button that taps into people's brains and shuts off their ability to break the law. It's like a concept you'd read from someone who's afraid of Wi-Fi. It's really fucking goofy, but I do like what they could have explored with that idea, turning the whole country into a police state where everybody's freedom has been stripped of them by having a signal rewiring their brain. And I think that's an interesting thing they could have explored, which they don't. The movie focuses on 3 people that just want to commit the last crime America will ever see by stealing $1 billion as a big fuck you. And honestly, that could be pretty cool too if the characters weren't so insufferably edgy and the writing didn't seem like it was trying so goddamn hard to be cool. The dialogue between these characters is the dumbest shit I've seen in a while. It's like it was actually written by someone's 12-year-old that's going through their goth phase for the first time. And I'm not exaggerating, it really is just super fucking bad. Like, the first time we're introduced to the female main character, she comes into a bar where we see our main character who's feeling sorry for himself, drowning his problems in alcohol. You know, he just got bad news. His brother's killed himself in prison, and, you know, he's just not happy about it. But our female lead marches right up to him, takes an ice cube out of his drink, sucks on it, puts it back in, and they fuck in the bathroom. After he's ejaculated inside of her, after about 45 seconds of awkward watching of thrusting in the bathroom, she looks in the mirror and says, "Cross that off my to-do list." Main character says, "What?" She says, "Fuck the loser." And that's where that scene ends. Honestly, I was expecting more cuts during the sex scene. I'm pretty sure there weren't any, and I think it was just one static shot of just watching this thrusting against the wall. Knowing this man's directorial decisions, I was half expecting like 20 cuts to come in where I get like a nutsack shot, you know, a quick glance at the nutsack, and then bang a little bit of shaft. You don't want to show too much shaft. Then bang titties, and then bang face, sack, face, done. You could have definitely put more cuts in here is what I'm saying. In fact, I almost missed the cuts. It was just weird watching a static shot of that for so long. I think maybe at this point in this man's directing career, he should just rely on like 1,000 cuts per scene. At least have something unique about it as opposed to just some generic garbage now, because this movie takes generic shit we've all seen before and just makes it worse somehow. And I really can't stress just how hard it tries to be cool. Every character is like an evil character with goofy, comical, evil supervillain dialogue. You know, for example, one of the main's dads is a bad guy, you know? So when the main comes to the dad, he's like, "Dad, you're a bad guy because of this." And then the dad's like, "Well, son, you're a bad guy because you fucked your mother." "No, Dad, that was my stepmom, and I introduced you to my stepmom, and I fucked her because I don't like you, Dad." And he says, "Well, son, who fucks their own stepmother?" And that's the argument that they have. Like, it's just really trying so hard to be like edgy and cool, and while that's not the best example of it, it's still just some dumb shit. But I think the biggest sin of this movie is its runtime. It is 2 hours and 29 minutes. That is far too long for a movie that is just so choppy, all over the place. There's for an action movie, there's really not much action, and when there is, it's really underwhelming shit with not a whole lot going on or a whole lot of moving parts or interesting things. It's fucking boring. It is a slog. It's a fucking chore to watch. It is not good. For a movie about being unable to commit crime, the fucking director committed the biggest crime of all and made this movie so fucking long just to waste as much time as possible from the audience. Which is a shame because, like I said, the concept is cool, and I do think the actors did try at least to put on a performance given what they had to work with, and I respect that. But man, the movie is just so all over the place, and that's another thing. The editing in this movie doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, scenes will just jump all over the place without anything connecting them, just all very loose. Towards the end of the movie, it feels so rushed that it all falls apart. It's so fucking dumb, and I'm really upset because it has my boy Charlton Copley in it, and I fucking love him. I think he is a criminally underrated actor who is so talented but keeps landing some bad roles and some bad shit. This being one of those, which is a shame, but again, I am a huge Copley fan, and his character in this movie isn't that bad, but even his character just feels like a useless, dumb character. Like, it just, all of it just feels so fucking empty. So 2.5 hours, not worth spending watching this movie. That's what I wanted to talk about. Just not a fun movie. Not so bad it's good, just a shitty movie. And yeah, that's about it. So yeah. I've been back and forth on whether or not to even make a video covering this topic because I've talked about a lot of it extensively for the last couple of years. But today, someone on board the team made a statement that is so laughably awful and so goofy, I just felt compelled to once again go over the entire situation and then focus in on that statement. But I recognize that this one person doesn't speak for the entire movie or the entire brand behind it. But it's such a tragically silly statement that they put out that it's hard not to laugh at it. So, The Flash is right around the corner. It's a DC movie that a lot of people are excited for, obviously. However, it's got its fair share of controversy because Ezra Miller plays the Flash. I have covered Ezra Miller's shenanigans over the last year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been, extensively. Ezra Miller is an absolute menace, a fiend. How Ezra Miller is not in the slammer right now boggles my mind and makes me believe in real-life cheat codes. Of course, the cheat code being fame and money. The list of crimes and accusations against Ezra is longer than the terms of service when signing up to iTunes. It's like 5 full novels worth of accusations against Ezra. It's a ton of shit. It is ridiculous. But I'm not here to really, harp on any of that, because again, I've covered it for quite some time. Ezra Miller's out here like a literal SpongeBob villain, committing as many crimes as possible over the last 2 years, collecting them like Pokemon cards. But it had no effect on The Flash. The movie's still coming out with, of course, Ezra Miller at the front lines, lead role, and it's been a bit of a blemish for the brand's reputation because obviously, alleged kidnapping as well as a myriad of other alleged crimes and assaults and all kinds of unpleasant things. That's not empty calories. Those are pretty serious things. So the top level suits have clearly poured a ton of money into The Flash, well north of 9 figures. This is a $100 million+ production, and they obviously don't want to see it go right down the shitter, so they've been trying everything they can to mitigate the damage caused from all of this controversy. They've tried tackling it head on about, an Ezra forgiveness arc and this and that, but that hasn't really gone over well. The Accutane wasn't curing the acne here. The zit persisted, so they've tried a different approach. It's called radio silence. They're playing the no-talking game when it comes to Ezra Miller. I believe they've forbidden Ezra from even being on the PR tour, which I think the reasoning is pretty clear because you never know what might happen with Ezra Miller on a PR tour here. Shit might pop off and another chair gets thrown at an audience member during karaoke. Unpredictable, You're playing Russian roulette. So they decided, put Ezra Miller on the bench. And that's been their main tactic, making sure that the Flash launch is as squeaky clean as possible. However, this strategy of not talking about Ezra Miller wasn't relayed to one person in particular, the production designer, who made a statement today that said, Ezra Miller's performance is so good in this movie that people will forget the crimes. This movie is so good, you're gonna forget all of these crimes. I guarantee it. That's innovative marketing right there. So we go into a meat writing session here where the production designer is just singing the praises of Miller and all the work that was put in, talking about the pressure with, of course, the public being aware of all of the terrible things going on outside of the production with Miller. And, you know, having to deal with all that pressure on set, and also just working super hard, only taking 3 days off during the entire shoot. A real fucking champion, a real hero, filming 6 days a week, and Miller did their own stunts. So, like, really just pumping their fists. Like, yeah, this is what hard work is all about. The crimes are meaningless now. Look at this work. And it's not, what's wild is it's not even that far-fetched of an idea. It's actually something that's been employed many times in the past. So, for example, Riot Games fell into some hot water for a brief period of time due to a lot of nasty allegations coming to light about like harassment, sexual stuff, and just a very awful working environment at Riot Games, and they were sued for it. They were facing a massive lawsuit. In fact, one of the reports I vaguely remember talked about how they used to like hotbox cubicles with farts. So, like, one of the Riot heads would go in there and just start fucking farting in people's, like, workspaces, which I always imagine is the most over-the-top shit, like he's doing combat roles in the office like James Bond and using his ass as, like, a weapon with a silencer on it and just, like, firing poop particles in people's directions. But they had a lot of, like, these terrible things that all came to light. Eventually, they did settle for a massive settlement. Fucking $100 million settlement. That's a lot of doubloons. But the point is, when the public was made aware of what was going on here behind the closed doors, Riot started releasing information on upcoming projects that got people really excited. So people stopped talking so much about all of the awful workplace stuff and instead focused on all of the incredible things Riot was cooking up in the kitchen that they were now releasing a lot of information about. So the timing always made me feel like Riot's strategy was, okay, this is all bad, but what if we can take people's attention away from the bad stuff and instead put it on these projects that we know they want? So that's what they did, and a lot of people totally forgot any of this ever happened. So if that was the strategy, it worked very well. It's also what Logan Paul did. Logan Paul was facing a ton of hot water because of all the Crypto-Zoo shit, and instead of, like, you know, trying to swim around in the swamp, he instead just let all of that happen and then did incredible work in the WWE. He had amazing performances in the WWE, so then people stopped focusing on all of the Crypto-Zoo and all the scamming stuff, and instead focused on, like, wow, Logan Paul is like a really good WWE performer. So now that's mainly all people talk about there. It's a strategy that actually has been used a lot, and it's really effective. So them saying, like, Ezra Miller's acting in this movie is so good you're gonna forget all the crimes is not really the most outlandish thing ever. It's just pretty bold to just say that out loud. Like, yeah, his acting is so good, all these crimes, you're not going to care about him. Fuck all the victims and all that. They're going to watch this movie and be blown away by the performance. They're going to stop caring that they were a victim. I just love that the production designer got so excited. They're like, these crimes, who cares? It's a bunch of hoo-ha in the grand scheme of this movie. This movie is more important than any of that. And Miller's performance, it stands on its own two legs. You know, damn the crimes. To hell with the accusations and the controversy. What matters is the Flash. I don't know. I just found that to be, like, really entertaining to read that. I'm kind of surprised that the production designer would actually say that. I imagine all of the people, like the higher ups, are probably right now with their hands over their face, just in agony now that this interview's out there. Because they were so close to launch here. And, you know, not many people have been talking about all of the Ezra Miller crimes. Now they're more focused on the hype of The Flash. DC's been shitting the bed, obviously. You know, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, what an embarrassment and an absolute flop. So DC really needs this one to be a home run. And it's been a while now, so a lot of people have already kind of stopped talking about all of the Ezra Miller controversy. But this interview, once again, brings it to the forefront, which I imagine is the last thing they want right before this movie comes out. So I just wanted to talk about it because, you know, a bit of a misstep here, a bit of a blunder taking this interview and saying that. But again, it's one person. I know the production designer doesn't speak for the whole company, but it's certainly not helpful to to say, you know, the performance was so good for Miller that the crimes people are going to forget about. It's not a great look. It's really about it. So yeah. What's more brave? Running into a burning building to save the life of a family trapped inside? Or offering a controversial take on a beloved horror movie that just released? I think both are equally as brave, but there's only one that I'm courageous enough to actually do. And that's giving a horror movie that has the entire film world going gushing grannies mode over it a less than perfect score. Less than 100%, which is controversial, it seems. Longlegs. I already know me name-dropping this film and stating that I'm giving it a less than perfect score has probably already had a few people spitting out their Budweiser while cracking their knuckles, turning to their keyboard going, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." But I want to be clear up front, I think it's a good movie. But I don't think it's anything special. I think it is dreadfully overhyped. I went into it with really high expectations because all the reviews, it had like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and everyone that I was reading from was saying things like, "Scariest movie humanity's ever produced. This one's gonna keep you awake for the rest of your life because you won't be able to think about anything besides how frightening this film was. It's gonna have you looking over both shoulders anytime you pass a dark corner." Like crazy praise, which is rare for a horror movie. So, I saw it last night, and I gave a little pseudo moist meter on stream last night. I'm going to play that for you here, but be warned, it's a bit of a hot take because it seems like not many people feel the same way I do about it. Now, I already know there's plenty of people that aren't actually going to bother hearing what I have to say about the movie. You've already made your minds up about me that I'm some brainless Cro-Magnon that just couldn't understand Longlegs, which is why I wasn't scared by it. I promise you that's not the case, because Longlegs itself is a film that I feel like you can't walk away without understanding at least the majority of it, because the very end of the movie drills into you exactly what it was all about and what was happening. So it's not exactly like the subtlety was lost on me. I appreciate the cinematography. The cinematography does so much heavy lifting in this film. It's actually beautifully shot. The performances are great, but it really felt like a ton of other horror movies I've seen with much prettier packaging around it. Especially, I'm not going to get into spoilers. This is completely spoiler-free. I want to make that clear up front. And also, I already know there's other people that'll use some other kind of explanation for why I didn't like it. Oh, Charlie only likes horror movies with jump scares, which is a crazy take, considering I hate most modern horror films. I think the vast majority are irredeemable dog shit, and a lot of that is because they have an over-reliance on jump scares. My favorite horror movie is Hereditary, and by all accounts, that movie is a slow burn. It's an unrelenting, eerie, tension-building film, and the jump scares don't really come in until like the last 10 minutes, which is my least favorite part of the film because it kind of just devolved into normal horror cliches in like a 10-minute montage. They just speed run every jump scare ever, which I thought was kind of silly. But I still think Hereditary is a horror movie masterpiece. So the pacing of the film being slower in Longlegs, I actually think is a very big positive thing. So that's definitely not any kind of complaint I have, and I hope no one gets that twisted. Anyway, I get into more specifics on stream, again, while avoiding spoilers, but I kind of just vomit out my thoughts a little bit more there, so you can really take in this hot take for you. I'm gonna give you a little live moist meter on Longlegs here. I was extremely excited for this movie. It had so much hype, like all the headlines were, "This is the scariest movie ever, you won't be able to sleep without a nightlight on, hope you got your mom to give you some warm milk on standby after seeing this one, because it's gonna scar you." It's the scariest movie in decades, certified masterpiece, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and all the trailers looked amazing. So it came out today, and I just got back from it. Overhyped. I'm sorry to tell you, it very overhyped. I don't know what the marketing budget was, but they must have really sold it in a big way to the critics. Because it is good, like it's not bad by any means. It's better than most horror movies, but that's like, you know, that's not a very high bar. Most horror movies are irredeemable slop. But it is better than most. But it's just, I don't know, it's not special. And I went into it expecting something like Hereditary level, where I'm like, I haven't seen anything like this. This is genuinely unnerving stuff. And the movie's shot beautifully, the acting's great, the story is good. It's just not scary. Like, really at all. I see tier 1 12-bit. Pretty much all of the scares are the exact scares that we've seen a million times in every other horror movie ever. They're just packaged a little bit better. Nicolas Cage was great. Everyone was great in it, but I don't think, like, a good performance can save a not scary horror movie. Like, there's a couple scenes that do a good job of building tension, but the tension never goes anywhere. They just let it peter out. So you'll have, like, a really long scene. It's like, oh, this is going to build to something, like, crazy. There's going to be something really, you know, eerie about this. And then it just slowly fades. I don't know, it just didn't, it never got under my skin. I never felt, like, on the edge of my seat or scared, you know, chattering fingernails on my teeth or anything. It just, I just didn't think it was all that great. It's good, but it's not great. Why did they hype up what he looks like so much? Because Nicolas Cage looks like a super weirdo in the film. And he looks weird, but he doesn't even look that much different than... You know what he looks like in this movie? He looks like the grandfather from Holes in the flashback scene with Kate Bartlow, where she's like, I'm tired of this, Grandpa, and he goes, that's too damn bad! That's what Nicolas Cage looks like here. It's not, like, it's nothing crazy. He looks exactly like this guy. So he just, like, progressively gets more and more like this guy as the movie goes on with longer hair. This movie also has a really lackluster ending because they treat the audience like they were too stupid to piece together what was happening throughout the whole movie. So there's like a montage that explains all of it and just beats you over the head with it. It's not bad. Please don't misunderstand me. Like I said, this is better than like 90% of horror movies that come out. But it is not the masterpiece that I thought it would be. Like, I was ready to, like, expect another Hereditary. Which I guess is unrealistic. But it really wasn't close. So you just set your expectations a little high? Yeah, I think it's part of that. I definitely think that's part of it. And I think the hype around the movie does it a huge disservice once you actually see it. Because it's not the scariest movie ever made or anything. But it is a good movie. Why don't you like the ending of Hereditary? I think it's so unique. I think it's the opposite. The problem with Hereditary's ending to me is that it's not unique. The rest of the movie was. The final 10 minutes is just every jump scare ever shoehorned into a 10-minute speed run. The mom, like, banging her head on the attic. Then, like, a bunch of people coming out going, boo! 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 Like, the theater started laughing when the coat, or whatever it was, like, flew across the room. Like, it was so silly. So good as a film, but not scary, right? Yeah. That's kind of how I'd classify it. I think for certain people it will be unnerving, depending on how you respond to the themes. So, it just wasn't one that I personally found to be frightening. I have to know what Longlegs is about. I'm not going to spoil it. Like I said, I think it's probably best to go in not knowing what it's about, because the trailers do a good job of keeping that a mystery. So, I won't ruin that. What would I give Longlegs? If I was to put Longlegs on the moist meter, I'd probably give it like a comfortable 75%. Like, it's good, like I said. That's probably where I'd land, somewhere in there. I don't remember if I mentioned this on stream, but I watched Sinister the other night, because it's one of those, like, horror movies that everyone gives a lot of flowers to. They're like, Sinister really is one of the best. And it's one of them that I hadn't seen before. So I watched Sinister for the first time. And the movie's pretty dog shit for the most part. But what it does really, really well is when it's going through the old home movies, the sound design is great. Like, the sound really fucking sells some of it. And then, when it gets out of the sound, like when it gets out of the tapes, they just have like the really silly stuff with the guy who just goes up to the camera and does this. So, dog shit's being really harsh for no reason. It's fine, but it's not like, I would never say it's one of the best. I usually have great memory, especially with names and faces, and I can even remember a lot of like really worthless moments from my life that have no real significance. Like the first time I peed on my own clothes, or the time my dad was sitting and watching TV, and I was really into WWE at the time, so I shouted 619 like Rey Mysterio, and I came and I kicked him in the face. Like, all of that I remember. But sometimes I'll forget to do things that I think are pretty important, like moist metering huge things that came out. There's 4 huge things that came out that I just didn't moist meter, and I don't have a real excuse for it. I know the teacher can discipline me by taking a ruler to my bottom, but it's just one of those things where I watched it or I played it and then just didn't moist meter it because I wasn't thinking about it. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to play a little catch up here for things that I didn't release a moist meter for, and I know the absence of a moist meter on these big titles probably left people feeling cold and alone out in the rain without any guidance. So I know it's a little late, but better than never. Let's go ahead and start with the Dead Space remake. I streamed the whole game. I loved it. It's a fucking amazing remake. Now, it's not a remake in the same sense of something like Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 3 or most likely Resident Evil 4 remake. It's not like they rebuilt and reimagined this game in a different way. They took everything that was already outstanding about Dead Space, which is an absolute classic. That game is still iconic. And they just added to it. They didn't make anything worse. They just made everything better. Visuals, they added more lore, more characters. And this time around, Isaac actually talks, which is so much better than the silent protagonist. Because every time, this is just a little pet peeve, every time they do a little silent protagonist shit, it always feels like I'm playing someone who's been lobotomized and everyone has to patronize me. Like they're babying me. Like in the original Dead Space, for example, there'll be a conversation that Isaac's not taking part in because he didn't talk. And they'll be like, Isaac, did you repair the toilet in the women's restroom? And Isaac doesn't say anything, but then they just kind of fill in the blanks for you like, oh, I'm sure you did fix the toilet, Isaac, such a good boy, such a big boy. Like, without you ever contributing to anything, it just always feels like you're more of an active spectator as opposed to a real character in the story. I am just not a fan of the whole silent protagonist angle. I never really like the excuse of you can project yourself onto the character, because that doesn't really work either if you're not actually partaking in the story or making decisions like that. So I am very happy that they actually added dialogue for him, and I think they've done a good job with it. They, of course, did change the way Isaac looks, but I don't think that is a detriment to the game at all. I think it's completely fine. I think they've done a great job with everything. This is just like the best way of experiencing Dead Space if you haven't played it, or even if you have, this is a great way of getting back into the rodeo and having a great time in the Dead Space world. It was just a ton of fucking fun. Everything to love about Dead Space is still intact in the Dead Space remake, with some absolutely beautiful, tasty frosting on top of that already amazing cake. I think it's just an outstanding remake. Plugging it into the moist meter, I'd easily give this like a 95%. It's probably like one of my favorite remakes. Because not only is it an amazing game, but they just did everything right. Visually, it is a huge upgrade, and I will never understand the complaints from people that probably never even played the original saying that it doesn't look that much better. It is night and day. Go back and look at original Dead Space compared to the remake. It's not even fucking close. It's in a completely different ballpark. It is a beautiful game. It is a big improvement on an already amazing game. So I just think Dead Space Remake is fantastic. Moving on to the next big thing that came out that I didn't moist meter, Puss in Boots 2 Last Wish. I did see this movie. I saw it about a week after it came out, and I loved it. I think the movie is extremely good. The hype that surrounds the film is absolutely accurate. It lives up to the hype. And I'd even say some people undersell how much fun it is to watch. The action in here is very inspired by like the way Into the Spider-Verse does it. It's fucking great. And the main villain that I'm sure all of you have seen now, the wolf with the two little tiny handheld scythes, dual wielding these little scythes. I don't know what the actual fucking weapon's called. I'm sorry, Forged in Fire fans, but it's that blade, like that giant, like hooked blade that looks like almost a question mark that he's holding. Like those weapons are really cool, but that character is super badass. The fights between him and Puss in Boots are really impressive. This isn't like some kind of boring Looney Tunes fight where there's only like a little bit happening. They go hog wild. Like there was times I was like, wow, I feel like I'm watching a top 10 anime shonen moment. It's like they really put a big emphasis on the action. And they do a great job with it. It's flashy, it's fun, and it also has a really good story. It's nothing that's going to be groundbreaking, but it's also not afraid to be dark. It tackles mortality, overcoming the fear of death. Like, how do people deal knowing that they're going to die? Do you hide away, not take any risks? Or do you go out there and try and live to the absolute fullest? There's really nothing that I disliked about this movie. I had a great time watching it. I guess the only thing that I was kind of disappointed by is the absence of some counting crows. When I'm thinking anything in the Shrek universe, I'm thinking accidentally in love, you know? Like, where's the counting crows at, you know? I feel like there could have been a great montage of Puss in Boots fucking beating ass, eating ass, while you got Counting Crows blaring in the background, but, you know, you can't have everything, I suppose. It was a great movie, though. I really did enjoy it, and I do think it lives up to the hype. And I'm really excited for the future of it. And I'm glad that it's done so well in the box office because having more animated films like this is a great thing. Puss in Boots: Last Wish absolutely gets a 90% on the moist meter. I was debating whether it'd be a 95% or not, but I don't know if it's better than something like Red Line or Into the Spider-Verse, but it's very close, so it teeters on a 90 to 95%. I'll give it like that little range there. It's a really good movie. And now, speaking of good movies, time to wipe our ass with that whole thing because we're moving on to a bad movie. It's M. Night Shyamalan's new film, Knock at the Cabin. It's not a bad movie, I'm kind of exaggerating. It's a very cool concept executed in the goofiest way possible, which unfortunately seems very par for the course for modern M. Night Shyamalan films. So Knock at the Cabin, I'm sure you've seen the previews for. There's this family that goes to a cabin, and then 4 people show up saying that they're going to have to make a choice to sacrifice one of the family members in order to prevent the apocalypse. That's the whole idea of the film, so it tackles, is this family going to sacrifice someone to save the world? Is the world really even about to, fucking explode into this giant doomsday, this Armageddon? Or are these 4 people that are there just insane? Cultists, fanatics, weirdos, goofballs. At the end of the day, they're a random family. Why would their sacrifice for some reason prevent the entire world from just getting fucking blasted? So it's a cool idea, but it is just not a good movie. I'm going to get into spoilers for this one because it's the only way I can really even criticize it since all of it has to deal with the way that this concept is executed. So just fair warning, I'm going to get into spoilers for this film. But honestly, I'm kind of doing you a favor because it's just not that great in general. So the family that visits this cabin is a couple and their daughter, and the couple is 2 men. So they're a gay couple, and they believe that once they were visited by these 4 strangers that they were targeted because of homophobia or something like that. And I thought this was going to play into the film because at one point one of the strangers did lie about their name, and the stranger was actually a homophobe that attacked one of the men at a bar. But that never mattered. He proved that he lied about his identity to the other 3 strangers and that guy did have a connection directly with the couple in a very negative way. So I thought this was going to play on the idea like, oh, maybe this really is just kind of one big scam and these are just some like actual fucking awful weirdos. But it doesn't. The trailers also put a big focus on the little girl, and I'll tell you right now, she does nothing in this film and she maybe has 10 total lines. She has no role to play in this movie at all. Really, nobody does. This movie tries to throw things at you like one of the plagues that they're talking about that's going to ruin the earth after they've refused to make the sacrifice a couple times is a sickness. And the sickness is a virus that starts spreading. They turn on the news, they see the virus is spreading. But then one of the men is like, no, this is actually a big lie. This virus has been spreading well before we even got to this cabin. They're trying to pretend like what's happening right here is the result of us not killing each other. And it's like, oh, okay, so maybe it is a big lie. And I thought it was going to play like with the psychological aspect of, is it true or is it not? But it doesn't. They kind of like sprinkle these red herrings in there, but not in a really effective way because at the very end of the day, nothing that happens in that cabin matters because everything plays out exactly as Dave Bautista says. Dave Bautista is the fucking prophet, and everything he said was 100% accurate. So the twist in this film is that there's no twist. Everything just follows this like on-rails fucking Disney ride of exactly what they were saying is 100% the truth and exactly what's happening. So ultimately, everything that's going on in the cabin is kind of fucking worthless until the very end where one of them does make a sacrifice to prevent the apocalypse because planes are falling out of the sky now. It was just really underwhelming. Oh, and also, even just thinking about the movie just made me fucking sneeze. But also, another thing is the movie is rated R. They're saying fucking shit and there's blood. Kind of. Every time that something happens where someone dies because the 4 strangers, in order to release the plague after the decision has been made to not sacrifice one of the family members, they kill one of them. And they do that by bashing their skull in. But even though it's R, they don't actually show that. So they'll show them like getting down on their knees saying a choice was made, humanity's been judged. And right before they hit them with it, they'll pan the camera up so you can't see it, you can only hear it, or they'll just get out of the cabin entirely and you can only hear it. So even though it's R, it doesn't even show you the disturbing stuff. You just hear it, which is highly underwhelming as well, and it takes a lot of this, like, the intensity out of these moments, because then you're no longer even bearing witness to the fucking craziness of it. Like, everything about the film is just super underwhelming. Like, had they actually came in with more of playing around psychologically of if it's fake or if it's real, I think they could have had something very fun here and pretty interesting, because the concept, I think, is interesting. But it just falls so flat. It really does. Plugging Knock at the cabin into the moist meter, I'm giving it a 50%. Like, I think Dave Bautista does a great job, as well as all the other actors, but they can't carry just weak material. So it's just not overall a good movie. Now, the last property that I didn't moist meter is one that people have not stopped pestering me about. This was probably one of the biggest films to release of the last decade, and I didn't moist meter it, which is kind of shameful, but I'm doing it now. It's 80 for Brady. 80 for Brady is a story about 4 80-year-old women that go to the Super Bowl because they love Tom Brady. And, man, I gotta tell you, the only reason we saw this is because it was so silly looking. Like, why would this even exist as a film? So we kind of saw it as a joke, Andrew, Aaron, and I. But I gotta be honest, it's not a bad movie at all. It was actually a good movie. And what made it very special is the theater was fucking packed, and we were the youngest people there by about 50 years. Every single person in that theater was also probably around 80 years old, and a lot of them had Tom Brady jerseys on. It was absolutely adorable. The film itself is also competently made. Like, yeah, a lot of the jokes are geared towards geriatric people. Like, a lot of the jokes are, you know, the old women screaming or the old women doing some silly dances, but since they're, you know, up there in age, they can't really do the big dance moves, so it's usually them doing some of this. Like, it's actually just adorable, but there are some good jokes in there that aren't, like, bad. For some reason, there's big cameos, like Guy Fieri's in there. Like, it's just not a bad movie at all. It was, like, a really positive film. Right now, we're in an age of movies where they all want to go really dark and grim, where everything is kind of doom and gloom for a little while, taking, like, really, you know, somber spins and everything. This movie was 100% just positivity from start to finish, which was really kind of refreshing. And the theater that we were in loved it. They were giggling and clapping at times, like when Tom Brady made a good pass and the women were appreciating it. This movie is also produced by Tom Brady, so this man literally made this movie to just pad his own ego, which is fucking beautiful. He acts in it too, and I tell ya, he smolders. Every scene Tom Brady's in, he's just giving like this direct stare down, and since he got his like buccal fat removed, he's got like these, you know, his cheeks are really in, and he's like, Lou, just remember what I did when I played the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl and led one of the most historic comebacks in NFL history. Lou, you guys can do it. Like, that's the extent of Tom Brady's acting, and he does that like 1,000 times. It's so silly, but in a good way. Like, yeah, it's kind of hard to watch where you're like, oof, Jesus, Tom. Like, you know, you're not winning any Oscars here, but god damn it, he's trying, and that's appreciated. It's just a movie where I have no complaints because it'd be silly to complain about it. We knew exactly what we were going to get going into it, but it was even better than we thought in that regard, where it really was just an enjoyable comedy flick. I also appreciated the goofiness of it because it's somewhat inspired by a true story, because some old women did go to the Super Bowl, and they kind of took that idea and went a little hog wild with it. So the women do drugs at a party and shit like that. And then at one point, the old women even win the Super Bowl for the Patriots. This follows the Super Bowl against the Falcons, where they were down by a ton going into the very final stretch. Well, in this movie, in that final stretch, the 4 old women break into the offensive coordinator's booth and start running plays for them. And then they give an inspirational speech to Tom Brady, who's listening on his helmet, and he's shaking his head and then saying thank you. And then they go out and win the game. It's so uplifting. 80 for Brady, I'm giving an easy 80% to. His shit kind of goes hard. So yeah, anyway, these were like the big things that I played and saw recently that I didn't moist meter when I really should have. So this is just me catching up with all of it, and that's about it. So yeah. Pacific Rim ripoff movie. Oh, is this like a Metal Iron Man hero? Oh my god, it's like Spy Kids 3D. this role at all. They should have had me play that role. I would have put some real passion behind it. God damn. Fucking delivering that line flat. He needs to put emotion in it. I'll have his head on my wall. Like that, you see? So this says that it's in French. But does that just mean it's subtitled in French, or did they have like the SpongeBob French crew dub it? How the fuck can Asylum have the budget to have an entire French dubbing crew do this? I wonder if 10 clips is enough to get the whole movie. I love the wetsuit Power Rangers. I'm half expecting a watermark to come up on these CGI scenes that have like little blender in the bottom right. Made with... God, I wish we could have watched the whole movie. But I think now we're caught up enough where we could watch Atlantic Rim Recreation. Damn, he's going for like a cane choke slam on this guy.
Undercover informant in a biker gang.
Oh god.
I did it to save my own skin.
But then I got abducted by aliens.
Over the next 3...
Which one are you
Well,
doing?
yeah, obviously it's gonna be a reenactment. I don't think they were gonna like smuggle in a camera for the sake of YouTube videos. It's like Breakout, man.
I guess, bro.
And now they need a new one.
So they called on Chris Chan. This is Sonichu Undercover.
It affects the neurotransmitters in the brain.
Bro, I don't care about your meth tutorial. I want to see you undercover.
Dopamine is all about pleasure.
But it all changed when they downvoted my Reddit post. I remember back when Game of Thrones was ruined, everyone was saying it's the worst finale of all time, you know, now the show's terrible and shit like that. And you see that a lot, you know, this is the worst show of all time, holy shit, the writing couldn't be this bad on anything. And it always makes it very clear to me, you've never seen American Horror Story, you fucking swine. American Horror Story is an incredibly unique show that really revels in the goofiness, over-the-top nonsense that it puts on screen, and I fucking love it. In American Horror Story, you're not going to find any semblance of good writing. The whole show feels like it's written by a middle schooler going through his Pierce the Veil stage. It's incredible to me. There's more character development in porn parodies. The characters that walked in on Pawn Stars to sell shit have more character development through that episode than the characters throughout an entire season of American Horror Story. Power Rangers has better writing. And if you want to talk about shitty season finales, American Horror Story sets the gold standard. They never know how to conclude any of their seasons. It's as if the director goes in the day of filming, shits his pants and comes up with it on the spot. Just as a fat key bump of coke, gives himself a coffee enema, his eyes roll into the back of his head, and he just starts fucking ghost writing the most nonsensical, silly endings possible. Let me give you an example. Last season was about the world ending because the Antichrist came, and the witches fought back to bring the world back and save everyone. Well, in the final episode, the main witch enters into a bathtub to travel back in time to fight the Antichrist. She goes back in time successfully through the bathtub, and the Antichrist is a teenager who's having a temper tantrum with his mommy. And he storms across the road only to get hit by an SUV driven by the witch. And that's how that boss battle was taken down, that raid boss. Just hit him with an SUV and the Antichrist died and the world was saved. Thanks to the power of Ford, I guess. It's fucking genius. The show is the result of what would happen if you gave someone's edgy 16-year-old a decent budget. But that 16-year-old just didn't really have much talent. They just had a vision that they didn't have the talent to bring to life. It's fucking great. I love the show. I unironically like the show, by the way. I think it's one of the few shows that is totally fine with being subpar in every possible category and creating something totally unique. And I love it. This season was no different. This season was American Horror Story 1984. It just ended last week. And this may very well be one of their best seasons just because of how ridiculous it turned out to be. To give you perspective, they forgot to write a final episode. They didn't write an actual climax. So the whole season was about Camp Redwood, a place where these horrific mass murders took place over the course of decades. And Emma Roberts, who I think is a great actress, and she's even good in American Horror Story, which is saying something because nobody's good in American Horror Story. but she does a good performance, as she usually does, and she plays the main character, Brooke, who has a very troubled past. Let me give you just a little sampler, let me give you a little quick cum shot of the kind of writing you'll find around these characters. Her troubled past consists of her previous engagement. She was getting married to a man she thought she loved, but she was a virgin, and she was saving herself for marriage for him. But he thought she cheated on him because his friend went to her house the night before the wedding. And so, naturally, his response to learning this was, on their wedding day, he brought a gun to the ceremony, and as they were saying their vows, he brought out the gun, shot her dad, shot his best friend, and then shot himself in front of her after saying, "This is your fault, Brooke." You know, it's genius. You can't possibly comprehend the subtleties in there, those nice little vicissitudes that the director was able to expertly weave into this piece of art. A magnum opus of writing, I'd say. So she has this troubled past, and then she teams up with this group of other people her age who all have this troubled past, and they all go to Redwood to escape. But the day before Brooke decides to go along, she gets attacked by a serial killer named the Night Stalker, whom she's able to fight off. And this is important because the serial killer has the power of Satan, Billy Idol, and anime on his side, and he doesn't take kindly to not getting his prey. So this supernatural, Satan-worshipping, Lucifer-approved serial killer follows Brooke. Now, they all get to Redwood, and there's another serial killer that ends up at Redwood named Mr. Jingles. And then by the end of the season, there's another serial killer that ends up at Redwood. And then by the end of the season, there's another serial killer that ends up at Camp Redwood, all pretty much out of nowhere. It's fucking great. It's as if you're watching a television show of the director playing with action figures in his bathtub, and he's just bringing new ones in from the box as his mom brings them in. It's fucking crazy. It is incredible what they've been able to do with this shit and get away with, really. It's awesome. I'm glad that this show exists because I do love it, but man, is it a objectively horrible show. Not only is the writing bad, but the acting is so incredibly flat from almost every character except Emma Roberts. Every other character feels like they don't give a fuck. Occasionally there's moments of good acting, but most of the time it's when they're getting killed they go, "Oh, ow, ooh, stabby, stab, oh, stab, oh." Or if they're feeling sad, they're like, "Oh, I'm real sad. I'm very sad because you know why I'm sad." Then they explain why they're sad for the 50th fucking time. Eventually, when some plot details are unraveled, you don't hear the fucking end of the motivation because they don't know how to write a character. So, you know, why didn't you kill her? Well, I didn't kill her because I wasn't able to. But you know you need to kill her because I don't like her, and this is why I don't like her. Did you forget why I don't like her? I'll tell you again. So then they tell him again. It's bad. It's really fucking bad, but I absolutely love this show. And to really put a nice bow on the beauty of American Horror Story, this season, they did something they've never done before. They've set a new low in the kind of shit they do on the show. They forgot to write an ending. The new season of American Horror Story doesn't have a climax. It doesn't have an ending. What it has is what would happen after an ending. It gives you an epilogue. So the episode before the final one has this setup. It has you leading down this path that's going to have this setup, this payoff, a climax. Everything does. Movies, television shows, even fucking high school plays do. But American Horror Story forgot it. So what they do in the final episode is just give you a recap, a bunch of flashbacks, telling you what happened. And it's this montage of just breakneck pace garbage. So all those serial killers that I mentioned that end up there, well, within the span of about 30 seconds, you see all of them just get killed in the epilogue, just out of nowhere. I'm sorry to spoil it, but it's worth talking about. Out of nowhere, these serial killers that some of them they built up over the course of the last 8 episodes, some of them they just introduced in the last one, but over this course, they all just get killed immediately in these series of flashbacks as they're being told to another character. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. They've forgotten the most important component, which is a payoff and a climax. And these characters constantly keep making different decisions and different things. You know how I said all the characters had a troubled past? Well, none of it mattered because they forgot the troubled past. That was their solution to that. But it's fucking incredible to have a show that doesn't have an actual ending or a climax because you just forgot it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And that is why I think American Horror Story is one of the best shows on TV. Fucking awesome. I love the show. That's it. See ya. On three thieves, and they need money because they're in a bad area and they want to get out. I mean, there's drugs all around them. There's death. There's prostitution. There's people pooping on poodles. It's just not a good situation to be in. And then they get a tip that a blind man is sitting on about him. The dude that looks like a fucking Saints Row created character is dating the female of the group, who the other dude in the group has a crush on. And this creates a little bit of conflict because the dude that's dating the girl's like, hey man, you still whatever, I'll go into the closet and hide injector. Now, I would give this movie about an Aussie out of Absolute Moisture. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aussie is more of a shampoo moisturizer. It's not really, you know, skin moisturizer. Now, let me justify my rating here. I don't feel like it's fair to limit the Absolute Moisture scale to things that just lubricate your skin.
This is the way I want you to drink it. Hello there.
Hello, welcome to Splash TV Movie Reviews, the only reviews that are so trustworthy you'd let us raw dog you because you know that we'd pull out in time and also not give you any diseases. Today's movie we'll be reviewing is Doctor Strange, starring Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange, a fucking spot-on casting call. He absolutely nailed the character. Now, as I've said before, superhero movies are among my favorites, and the last superhero movie I saw was Suicide Squad, which I thought was pretty shitty. It left a very foul taste of ass in my mouth, but after finishing Doctor Strange, it has not only cleansed my palate, where I once tasted rectum, now all I taste is the sweet, savory sensation of boeuf bourguignon. It was a fucking great movie. Now, ordinarily in my movie reviews, I spoil a lot of the movie's plot, and this will be no exception. So the movie starts by showing Doctor Strange in the operating room, letting you know how good he is at what he does. He's basically doggy-styling nurses while he's performing open-heart surgeries. Usually some humans require machine assistance when they make some precise cuts and shit, but he can just toss the scalpel in his mouth and do it as a joke. He's just this incredibly skilled surgeon. But then he gets into a car accident because he was texting and driving pretty much, and he loses the ability to do surgeries because his hands get all fucked up. And then he spirals into a very dark place and just keeps trying to find ways to fix his hands. He eventually comes in contact with someone known as the Ancient One, who begins to teach them some mystical magic stuff. And this is where my first complaint about the movie comes into play. I love the magic stuff. I love all that mystical stuff and the trippy vibe that it has, because it sends you on like an LSD-induced acid trip for a little while, and it's really fucking cool. I like that a lot. I just don't think they use the mystical powers very well. For instance, they're able to draw weapons into existence, but they choose to bring forth the most useless weapons, like very small whips and chains. Basically, they bring shoelaces and start slapping each other with them, and a very small shield. Why wouldn't you give a bigger shield, like a whole fucking building for a shield, and bring like a giant axe, like a 900-foot axe or something? That's like if I had the ability to conjure weapons on the spot and I'm choosing to bring ukuleles and recorders into the world and try and beat people to death with them. It makes no sense. Why wouldn't you give yourself a more useful weapon instead of these very small reach shit piles of ass? And another thing, a very reoccurring power, is their ability to change the terrain and make buildings shift and fall onto each other, shift the world and all that. That's a very powerful thing, but they only use it to trip each other. That's genuinely the only time it's used. Why wouldn't you use that power to try and crush them between buildings or make shit fall onto them or make them fall onto shit? Why would you reserve that ability for, oh, I'm gonna throw you off balance, get ready, here comes a real zinger, it flies real fast in the Thunderdome, gotcha, yep, you fell, I win. It's just dumb, you know, that you have this really powerful thing and you use it for such a dumb purpose. But overall, I love the way the magic was used. For the most part, I just feel they could have done more with it. The main villain wasn't bad. He was a simple character, which is good. You know, he had a very clear goal that he strives for. I want to take Earth and put it in the dark dimension with Dormammu, and he can do whatever he wants with it. He can make it his third testicle. Just get us to the dark dimension so we exist beyond time, so we all live forever. A decent idea, really not bad. Dormammu was a pretty cool villain. He had a face that looked like some very long purple pubic hairs. It was kind of cool looking. I enjoyed that. The villain I didn't like is the last one they revealed, Baron Mordo. I thought his was very shitty. He became a villain because he felt betrayed because the Ancient One tapped into power from the Dark Dimension, and he didn't like how Doctor Strange could manipulate time. He thought it broke the natural laws, so then he becomes a supervillain. It's pretty shitty. He's just like this strict fucking 5th grade hall monitor who takes the rules too seriously, where the rules are unbreakable no matter what. Even though Doctor Strange saves Earth and time itself and everything, he still hates him for breaking the natural order of the natural law of things. So I thought that was kind of a dumb reason. I know that wasn't his reason for being evil in the comic books, so I feel like they could have done something cooler here. I thought Baron Mordo as a character in the movie was awesome though. I just didn't like his reason for being a bad guy. Now, overall, I have so few complaints about this movie. I thought it was fucking great. The story was fun. The visuals were absolutely stunning. Ben My Dick Cucumber Snatch did great as Doctor Strange. I fucking loved the ending. The fight with Dormammu, I thought that was beautifully done. It's my favorite ending to any Marvel movie, or pretty much any superhero movie in general. I thought it was just fucking great. And really, just overall, it was a fun movie to watch. So, as per tradition at Splash TV Movie Reviews, I'll give this one a moisture rating. I'm giving this one easily an amlactin out of absolute moisture. Amlactin doesn't just moisturize dry skin, it fucking makes dryness go extinct. It regrows your skin. It's so goddamn moist. Now, that's exactly what this movie did for me. The last 2 superhero movies, Batman vs Superman and Suicide Squad, left me so dry, but this movie heavy duty moisturized me. Big time. I left the theater dripping wet. It was fucking great. Easily an amlactin out of absolute moisture. So, yeah, that's all. And remember, Splash TV's making you wet. It's your moisture. Use it when you need it. Call JG Wetsworth, 877-SPLASH. The name of the going for. They were looking for the